4. Subliminal messages in films and on music CDs, and the effects of electronics. Most of us have probably at one time or another wondered about how everything could turn so fast, from horseback riding, wagons and trains being run on coal, to our modern society with high tech. Seen from the perspective of human evolution, it's almost like a blink of an eye. Many wonder, but few know. In fact, our modern technological society was not entirely developed by us humans. Most of this technology came from aliens via TTP. We gave them what they needed and we got what we needed. And much of this technology was used within the military for warfare, for business and trade, and for direct control of humankind. Today, after 9/11 and other so-called terrorist attacks, governments are developing the perfect surveillance system to watch all citizens 24/7. Then, people in the New Age movement or those who are waking up spiritually may say that there are now many good movies and TV series revealing to the people what is going on. However, when we watch a show on spirituality, subliminally we are hit with a frequency which keeps us from original thinking. Often, the subliminal tells us to remain in a survival, go to work, be silent and fearful society. The day after we've watched the show, we still go to work as usual, perhaps even with a stronger feeling that we have to. Subliminal technology was to a large degree developed by ETs. In 1992, the Pleiadians had the following to say about subliminals. The use of subliminals to upset human consciousness has become a worldwide program. If you think about the houses that have 2, 3, and 4 televisions in them, you must agree that this has been a very successful marketing program. Some people who know about the subliminals on television feel that they are immune to them. However, the effects of television are so permeating that no matter how clear you say you are going to be, you cannot counterbalance what the technology is presently doing to your vibrational frequency. We have said that there are entities who feed off your emotional bodies. Think about what a clever tool television is for them. All over the world, billions of humans are emitting emotional juices into the atmosphere based upon what they are watching on the tube. They don't have to have too many wars anymore to get you all riled up. They can simply make movies. Marciniak, 1992. Bringers of the Dawn, page 91. Opposite. And then we have the music industry, of course, with subliminal messages on the records and CDs, called backward masking. 15. It's much more common than people think. Then we have the change of the standard A tuning. A equals 440 Hz, from 444 Hz, which is much more harmonious and in line with cosmic frequency. 16. The change was apparently introduced by the Rockefeller Foundation when exploiting military music. In spite of many conductors and musicians' protests, the change was also implemented on classical music and eventually rock music. The real introduction to low-frequency rock music was made by the British rock group Black Sabbath in 1969. The official story goes that the guitar player, Tony Iommi, had lost some of his fingertips in an accident, so it hurt to play on strings that were tuned in standard tuning. He resolved this by tuning down his guitar to a low dB, D-flat, which created the characteristic Black Sabbath sound. Many say they were the forerunner for other heavy metal and death metal groups, who still tune down their instruments to a lower tuning. This, of course, creates certain effects in the listener. If you also add distortion to the guitar sound, Black Sabbath even used a distortion box on the bass guitar sometimes, like in the song NIB, something unheard of before. You can create very unwanted emotions in the listener, which of course was the purpose. It doesn't help that you are singing about Lucifer and Satan as well. Their defenders say that they were Christians and sang against Satan and warned us from him, but this is just a clever psyop. All of the Black Sabbath members were into the black arts, admitted by Geezer Butler in a YouTube video. The fact that they mention Satan, Lucifer, and demonic possession in the lyrics is enough to trigger the subconscious mind, which does not distinguish between if the message is positive or negative. However, with the music that comes to it, the mind does interpret it as negative. The image of the rock group does the rest. Long hair, rebellious and dangerous. If you don't believe the music industry is totally corrupt and controlled, I strongly advise you to read Inside the LC, The Strange but Mostly True Story of Laurel Canyon and the Birth of the Hippie Generation by David McGowan. 17. It's probably the most detailed story of rock music with the most amount of truth that is out there. It's impossible to read the series of article and say it didn't happen and that it's not happening today. Everybody should open their minds to this and read it. If you are unprepared, it's quite shocking. The following may not make me very popular in some camps, but something that is very destructive is the mega rock concerts. If we understand that the ETs who are controlling us from other dimensions are feeding off our emotions, what then is a rock concert? It's an orgasm of emotions. The musicians are the first to receive all the excitement from the pumped up audience, who transmits both raw energy and a lot of sexual energy at the same time. The musicians then work as antennas for the other dimensional beings, who suck up the emotions and feed off them. More power to them. That's one big reason why band-aids, farm aids and whatnot are arranged, with huge arenas and marathon music playing almost around the clock. Not to mention the rave festivals where people are taking ecstasy and dance all night. Woodstock in the 1960s was a forerunner and a huge experiment in human behavior on a mass scale under the influence of drugs. The authorities were passing out drugs to the audience, who was stunned by this but of course welcomed it. To be able to tune out as much as possible from the frequencies which are there to trap us and keep us trapped, we need to unplug the television. Be very careful what music we listen to. Yes, I know that's the hard part. Only listen to uplifting music which takes you to higher realms of existence. Some say they feel high when they listen to death metal, but it's certainly not the same high as listening to Mozart of Beethoven. The high the death metal fan is feeling is adrenaline flowing through their body, seemingly uplifting them, when in fact it does the opposite, without the listener being aware of it. How much criminality and drug abuse can be traced back to the music industry and the products they are releasing? The percentage is much higher than most of us can even imagine. How about cell phones and computers? These days almost all people, at least in first world countries, use them all the time. Many of us are using electronics during the day more than we are off them. Our job situation requires it, and then we continue when we get home. And the same thing goes for cell phones. Electronics jam our frequencies. That should be obvious. There are incompatibilities between our own frequencies and those which are emitted by electronic devices. Most of the time this is done intentionally, but even when it's not, it still doesn't vibrate with us. This can be extremely damaging for our nervous system and stop us from effectively evolving as body, mind, spirit. We need our bodies and our minds to ascend to higher frequency bands, because our bodies are carrying much of our DNA, which we need to evolve. Electronics tamper with this structure and is therefore very destructive on our system, not to mention that it can produce cancer and other unwanted effects on the body and mind. I am using electronics myself, both when I'm writing my papers. I'm using a computer right now, and at work some of the time, mostly for email purposes. However, I rarely use my cell phone and I never ever watch TV. I stopped 5 years ago and I'm a happy camper. My plan is to use the computer less and less once I'm done with my writings and return more and more to nature. I am working on paying off all my debts, and I mean all, and become self-sufficient. We haven't seen the bottom of the rabbit hole yet, but I'm going to be prepared together with my family. The less dependent on the old system of functional insanity, the better. I am a free spirit and I can do whatever I want. I can dream, and I'm good at it. As an artist I can dream up whole realities, and I know what I want, and what I dream I will get. There will be more to follow. Ripple effect again. Just like I will follow those who went before me. Those who tune in will choose a similar future reality in a future version of Earth. The old world is declining rapidly and chaos and disasters are coming upon people faster and more drastically than ever. This is normally what happens just before a transition. Those who want to hang on to the old, like the captain who is determined to sink together with the ship, will perish or be caught up in a very disturbing reality, while those who choose not to be part of it will create a new existence on a higher level. However, to be able to do the latter, we need to master two of our worst enemies to ascension, fear and anxiety. Not until we have learned to conquer these emotions can we ascend to something we like better.